Taoist priest, Laoshan. It is said that there was a scholar named Wang in the county, rank 7th, who was a child of an official family and had admired Taoism since he was a child. He heard that there were many immortals on Mount Laoshan, so he packed up his luggage and went to search for immortals. He climbed to the top of a mountain and saw a Taoist temple in a very quiet environment. There was a Taoist priest sitting on the futon, with white hair, shawl, and bright eyes. Wang Sheng came up to see Li and started talking with him. He felt that the Taoist teachings were very mysterious, so he asked the Taoist to accept him as his disciple. The Taoist priest said, "I'm afraid you are too cowardly and lazy to endure hardship." Wang Sheng replied, "I can endure hardship." The Taoist priest had many disciples, and they all gathered in the evening. Wang Sheng greeted them one by one and stayed in the Taoist temple. In the early morning of the next day, the Taoist priest called Wang Sheng and gave him an axe and asked him to go chop wood with the Taoist disciples. Wang Sheng agreed respectfully. After a month, Wang Sheng's hands and feet were covered with thick calluses. He could no longer bear the pain and fatigue, and secretly had the idea of going home. One evening, when he returned to the temple, he saw two guests sitting and drinking with the master. It was getting late and the candles hadn't been lit yet. The master cut a piece of paper in the shape of a mirror and stuck it on the wall. After a while, the paper turned into a bright moon and illuminated the room, shining brightly. All the disciples were running around to wait on him. A guest said, "The beautiful scenery in the evening is an endless pleasure, and we must enjoy it together." So he picked up the wine pot from the table, distributed the wine to the disciples, and told them to drink as much as they wanted. Wang Sheng thought to himself, "How can 7 or 8 people drink a pot of wine?" So everyone looked for cups and bowls, vying to drink first, for fear that the wine in the pot would dry up. However, people kept pouring wine, and there was not a lot of wine in the pot. Wang Sheng was very puzzled. After a while, a guest said, "Thank you for giving us the moonlight, but it's still a bit lonely drinking like this. Why don't you ask Chang to come?" So he threw his chopsticks into the moon. I saw a beautiful woman floating out of the moonlight, less than a foot at first. But when she landed on the ground, she looked like an ordinary person. She twisted her slender waist and beautiful neck, and danced gracefully in the neon dress dance. Then he sang, "God, when you return to the world, why did you imprison me in Guanhan Palace?" The song was clear and melodious, as beautiful as playing the flute. After singing the song, he floated up in a circle and jumped onto the table. Everyone watched in amazement as he returned to chopsticks. The master and the 2 guests laughed heartily. Another guest said, "Tonight is the happiest, but I'm almost drunk. Can you 2 accompany me to the Moon Palace for a farewell drink?" So the 3 of them moved their seats and gradually entered the Moon Palace. The disciples looked up at the 3 men, sitting in the Moon Palace drinking wine. Their beards and eyebrows were all clearly visible, just like the shadow of a person reflected in a mirror. After a while, the moon's light gradually dimmed, and the disciple lit a candle, only to see the Taoist priest sitting there alone, while the guest had disappeared. The cores of the dishes were still there on the table. The moon on the wall is just a round piece of paper, like a mirror. The Taoist priest asked the disciples, "Have you drunk enough?" Everyone replied, "Enough." The Taoist priest said, "If you have drunk enough, go to bed early, and don't delay collecting firewood tomorrow." The disciples agreed and left. Wang Sheng was pleasantly surprised and envious, and immediately gave up the idea of going home. Another month passed, and Wang Sheng couldn't stand the hardship anymore, but the Taoist priest still didn't teach him a single spell. He couldn't hold it in anymore, so he said goodbye to the Taoist priest and said, "My disciples have traveled hundreds of miles to worship the immortal master. Studying, even if I can't get the magic of immortality, if I can learn some small magic, it can also comfort my mood of asking for advice. Now, 2 or 3 months have passed, but I go out to collect firewood in the morning and come back to sleep at night." The disciple never eats at home. You can't live with this kind of hardship. The Taoist priest smiled and said, I originally said that you can't endure hardship, and now it is true. I will send you back tomorrow morning. Wang Sheng said, I have been working here for many days, and I asked the master to teach me a little bit. A little magic. My trip this time is not in vain. The Taoist priest asked, what magic do you want to learn? Wang Sheng said, usually I see that wherever the master goes, walls can't stop him, as long as I will be satisfied if I can learn this spell. The Taoist priest smiled and agreed. So he taught him the secret and asked him to finish the recitation by himself. The Taoist priest said loudly, go into the wall. Wang Sheng faced the wall and did not dare to go in. The Taoist priest said again, you try to walk in. Wang Sheng walked forward calmly and reached the wall, but was blocked by the wall. The Taoist priest said, lower your head and rush forward, don't hesitate. Sure enough, Wang Sheng took a few steps away from the wall and ran towards it. When he crossed the wall, it seemed like there was nothing. When he looked back, he was indeed outside the wall. Wang Sheng was very happy and went back to thank his master. The Taoist priest said, when you go back, you must maintain self-love, otherwise the magic will not be effective. So he gave him some travel expenses and sent him back. When Wang Sheng returned home, he boasted that he had encountered the immortal way, and that no solid wall could stop him. His wife didn't believe it. Wang Sheng imitated every move he made that day, walked a few feet away from the wall, ran towards him, hit his head on the hard wall, and suddenly fell to the ground. His wife lifted him up and took a look. There was a big bump on his forehead, like a big egg. His wife laughed at him, and Wang Sheng felt ashamed and angry, scolding the old Taoist priest for his bad intentions. The author, Yi Shishi, is the self-proclaimed name of the Qing Dynasty novelist Pu Songling. In his work, Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, the last paragraphs of many chapters in Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio begin with, Yi Shishi said, which refers to Pu Songling's publication My Own Opinion. Said, everyone laughed when they heard this. But there are many serious people in the world, like Wang Sheng. Now, there is a despicable and boring guy who likes lust. He is sick, but is afraid of taking medicine. Then someone who sucked hemorrhoids came in and told him that there was a magic spell to cure diseases. To cater to his wishes, he lied to him and said, take this spell and you can cure all diseases. The effect was so great that I thought that everything in the world could be done in this way. It seems that they cannot stop until they hit the wall and feel pain.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.